Hi everybody, I'm Natalie with Missouri Star Quilt Company, and today I'm excited to teach the Winter Stardust quilt. Okay, so if you received the Jenny box this year, you will have gotten the Winter Stardust pattern in your box yesterday. So this is really exciting. The Winter Stardust pattern is very inclusive of all of the information that you will need to make this quilt. We have used a variety of colors in all different amounts. So I will say off the bat, if you wanted to use your own stash, you'll need approximately 4 10-inch square packs, and you can then shift and decide what colors go where, but we have a great chart that tells you exactly how many 10-inch squares that you'll need for each square and each part of each square. So for your backing, you'll need 4.5 yards if you're using a regular 45-inch wide fabric, or if you want to use a 108 like we did here, you'll need 2.25 yards. All right, so let's get into this pattern. It is very detailed and gives you everything that you need to know to make the quilt. So on the very first page, you'll get a color chart, and the colors are listed in order. They're also listed on the back of the pattern in their Kona solids, so you'll find all the names there that you need if you wanted to make this kit on your own. We are also offering a pre-cut kit where you can buy all of the fabrics that we used in the quilt, and they're all pre-cut into 10-inch squares to get you started. So then you save a ton of cutting and you don't have really any waste for, buying yardages and things like that. So it's really convenient. All right, and I highly recommend that you label all of your fabrics so you know which ones go where by their colors. So on the next page, we go into sorting and cutting. And the cool thing about this quilt is there are only 9 blocks. So you're gonna set all of your fabrics aside into 9 block sets, and it tells you exactly what you need for each unit. So I've got a block here. This is what the block looks like. There are 9 of these in the quilt. And so you'll see them as they line up like this. It's a 9-patch quilt. And I know it seems like it's a little bit more complicated, but it really is just that easy. So you'll start with your corner 4-patch units, and you will select all the fabrics that you need for those and set them aside into 9 different sets by their colors. And each block has the 4 units in the corners that match. So that's a pretty easy one. Then we've got our snowballed star points, and that's this section, these 4 here in the middle. So those get divided and also separated into those 9 blocks. And they're listed as, set 1 through 9, and then the sub-sorting is going to be like set 1A or set 1B, and that just depends on which part of the block you're sorting out. So it comes together pretty nicely once you get all of your fabrics cut and sorted. Then you're just assembling blocks, and so that's what we're going to go through next. And it really comes together easily. It's a nice big quilt. All of the pieces are pretty basic. So really the hardest part is going to be cutting and sorting, and once you get there, you're golden. This is going to be so quick and easy. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on these blocks. All right, so this is the block that we're working with, and it is giant, and I love that about it. We only have to make 9 of them. So we're going to start with our corner 4-patch units. I've got my fabric stack all sorted. So this would be like what you would have for maybe your set 1 or set 6. I don't know. However you want to get them sorted out. And I've got some of those made already. But what we're going to do for our 4-patch units is we're going to end up making all of them at the same time. We'll have our 10-inch squares, and you're going to pair up a medium and a light and a dark and a light. And then what we're going to do is stitch down both sides of each of these sets. So we'll just do that real quick. This is a great way, one of my favorite ways to make 4-patch units. And I would suggest, because the color placement is a little bit complex, I would just make 1 block at a time rather than chain piecing these. I mean, as far as the big blocks. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and clip these seams. Then what we're gonna do is cut these right down the middle, and we will get 2 sets of each color way. And we'll set those aside. And then we're going to go ahead and set our seams and press these open. Or back. You can press them open or you can roll them back, however you like to do that. I'm going to roll these back to the dark side because that will help my seams to nest really nicely when I put them together. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take these and we're going to lay them on top of each other with our fabrics going in the opposite placement, the opposite arrangement. So you have your dark and light here and your light and dark there. And then what we're going to do, we're going to line these up and we're going to stitch across the seams on both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. This is where you want to nest those seams. And then you'll get a really nice point in your 4-patch. So we're making 2 at once here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stitch 1/4 of an inch along the edge, and we're going to nest our seams so we get a really nice 4-patch point in the middle. Flip that around and do the same thing on the other side. Seems a little funny to sew it together like this, but when you see both of them come out and they're all done, it's super convenient and kind of fun. Okay, now we're going to cut these apart. This ruler is great because you're just lining it up on your 10-inch square and cutting them in half. And just like that, we've got 2. So you'll do that with both sets, and I've got these ones already made over here. Let me go ahead and press these, set my seam, and just roll them back. And these 4 blocks are all identical to each other, and you're going to put the darkest color towards the middle. Okay, so then what we're going to do, all of the units in this block measure 8.5 inches, so we need to square these down, and you're going to keep that middle centered up. So what we're going to do is square these, lining them up with the center on the 4 1/4 line. Just like that, and I like to use my seams, so you'll notice that I've got the middle seam lined up with 4 1/4 here and 4 1/4 here. I use this top corner to do that, and I'm going to cut these first 2 sides. This does make for putting together nice neat blocks at the end. And then we'll turn this all the way around so that this corner is now in our bottom left. And we'll line these up again with we'll be able to look now at our 8.5 inch line here on the outside edge. And you should notice that again, you still have your 4 1/4 here in your top right corner. So that is how you will square a 4-patch. Works out pretty nicely. And then we've got these beautiful units ready to go. I'm going to do the same here. 4 1/4, 4 1/4, and I'm looking at those lines. I'm going to spin this all the way around and cut the other corner, lining up now with 8.5 inches and still lining my seam line up with my 4 1/4 inch line up here in the top right corner. And you will do that to all 4 of your 4-patch blocks. And when you put them into the block, you're always going to put your dark pieces, whichever colorway you're using, your dark pieces go in the middle, pointing towards that center block. So now we've got our 4 patches made, and we'll set them aside. The next block we're going to make is our winter star points, our snowballed points. So let me move these out of the way, and I will bring in this set of my colors. So you'll notice that in each block there are 2 identical blocks. So these 2 fit in this the right corner, and then these 2 fit in the bottom left corner. So we have top right and a bottom left, and that is going to be true of all of these blocks. You'll notice that each one has 2 that are similar or identical in each section of the block. So we'll make 2 like this and 2 like this. So I'm just going to teach this one because they're all the same. You're just using different colors. So what we're going to do first is trim our starting square down to 8.5, and I've already got that done here. Then one of our 10-inch squares is going to get trimmed to 2 5x10-inch rectangles. And what we're going to do next is fold this and press a center mark, because that's what we're going to use to line up our points for these star legs. All right, so now we're going to take these rectangles and we're going to line them up, overlapping the point on top, the little mark that we just made, and then lining it up with the bottom corner, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch along this rectangle, and then we'll flip it back and do the same thing on the other side. All right. All right, so we're going to stitch 1/4 inch along the edge of this fabric. Then I'm going to go ahead and set this seam and press it back. I'm not going to trim yet. So then my next step is going to be lining this up. So we're going to crisscross here to make sure that we keep a nice point, and then line up the bottom corner again with this bottom left corner of our square. The rectangle and the square meet at the point, and it can hang off a little bit. You have plenty of room here, so don't stress too much about lining it up perfectly. They don't actually hit anything else, so you don't have to worry too much about placement. It's not a big deal. Relax. This part's easy. Okay. Again, we'll just sew 1/4 inch along the edge, and usually because this is on the opposite side, I'm sewing from the bottom up instead of the top down. All right. So now we'll go ahead and set this seam and press it back, roll that back. And you'll notice I've got a nice good sized crisscross here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip this over and we're going to trim off this excess. Now, if you wanted to, you could trim away the back of this block, but it's not necessary. It's not so many layers that you couldn't quilt through it, and it shouldn't create too much bulk in your block. So I'm just going to leave it. I kind of like the stability that it brings to the quilt. So I'm using this 8.5 inch square as my guide, and then using my ruler and rotary cutter to cut this away. These are great for the crumb bin. Flipping that around, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this next section here. And this is a good spot to just make sure that you're staying at 8.5, because that is what all of these squares need to end up. Okay. So our next step, if you flip this around and look at how these sort of line up, what we're doing is we're going to flip it like this, and then each block is the same, they're identical. So we're putting snowball corners on this other end to create that periwinkle or kite shape. So for this one, what you'll want to do is sew on, or you'll want to draw a line or press a line, and I'll do it both ways. I think I'll press this one, and then I'll draw the next one. Or you can use your diagonal seam tape. It's a bit larger than we normally do this on, 2.5 inch squares. So you might want to go ahead and draw or press the line, but the diagonal seam tape will work as well if that is your love. I totally understand. I probably would do that. Okay, so we've got one of each going here. We are going to sew right in that little valley, and then these get done one at a time, and we'll press it and flip it back. All righty. And you can, I don't know if you can see here, but you can line it up with your seam tape if you wanted to. And these are pretty large as far as half square triangles go, so I think it might be kind of fun to create a bonus project and sew a ½ inch away and then save those half square triangles for something. But that is entirely up to you. All right, I'm going to trim this away so that I don't have extra bulk at the point. And then we'll do the same thing here, crisscrossing our other square that we've drawn the line on. I'm going to start here and sew to the middle, and then these blocks will be done. Alrighty. Set that and press it back and trim off this excess here. You always want to reduce bulk in the points where we can, but that's that. So you'll make 2 identical blue ones and then 2 identical purple pink ones for the other corner of your block, and we've got all of these ready to go. So now I'm going to set those aside. The last block we have to make for this, or the last unit we have to make for this block, is our center. And that one is so simple. So all we're going to do is start with an 8½ inch square for our middle, and then our colors that are our accent colors, they're going to go in opposite corners. So we are going to start by doing our 2 blues on the top right and bottom left corners. And again, if you want to go ahead and draw a line or press it or use your seam tape, that's up to you, but we're going to sew diagonally from corner to corner on both of these squares to snowball these corners, and then we will press them, trim them, and repeat on the other corners. There we go. And there's just one of these, so it comes together quickly. All right, so now we're going to press these and roll them back. Whoops, set that seam, almost forgot. Getting to... Okay, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim these off. Again, if it's a big section of waist, so if you wanted to do a seam a ½ inch away from the seam and trim it off and save those half square triangles, it would be really fun. I feel like that secondary project would be so cute. At least a table runner, maybe a baby quilt. I don't know. Oops. Okay, so the reason that we're going to do these 2 corners, corner to corner, and then the opposite corners is so that we get a really nice point. And you want to do that so that you can keep your points here on this middle block. It works out great though, because they overlap. You'll notice that it overlaps by just the right amount. I'm going to go ahead and line these up, and I think I'm going to go ahead and add my stitch line here. Goes on nice and easy. We'll stitch both sides. Sewing on the line, corner to corner. readjust that. It looked like it got a little, slid around a little bit on me. There we go. All right. We're setting our seams and rolling this fabric back. And then we're going to trim off this excess. And that is our center block. All right, now it's time to lay it out. And I'm going to keep this block here as a reference. I highly recommend you use your diagrams heavily on this one. I don't think you could really make a mistake. I feel like it's going to be so fun and beautiful no matter what. So if one gets kind of in the wrong spot, I think it's still going to look awesome. So don't stress. But we're going to start by putting our center block down here in the middle. And then I'm going to line up my 4-patch blocks in the corners with that dark square pointing towards the center. Just like that. And then we're going to arrange our 2 star point blocks with our blues in the top right section. So right up here and right here. And then our purples go in the bottom left section. Right here and right here. And then we're just joining it together like a 9-patch, and you get great big blocks that look like this. And then these blocks also are just set together in a 9-patch. So you'll follow the diagram to lay them out. There's no sashing or border. It makes a quilt that is 72 inches square. And I just love this backing. It's so much fun. It's got all the matching colors. It's a great like cheater cloth or convenience fabric. It's so fun. I went ahead and quilted it in variety, and we used kind of a medium gray color that really blends in well on the quilt. But I think it would be so fun to use whatever your favorite bright pop of color is, or even a variegated thread. So just play with it, be creative, and have fun. I hope you guys are having a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on Winter Stardust from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We're trying super hard to get to 1 million subscribers, so if you enjoyed it and you want to see more, just hit subscribe and share with your friends and encourage them to do the same, and I will see you next Friday with a brand new tutorial.